Hello.
Hi.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. We're back to answer a question. This time from a submissive brat who's had a lot of upheaval in their relationship, and it's weighing on them. Okay, let's get into the question. It's a little on the long side, but not the longest we've ever had. I, 27 non-binary, and my partner, 28 male, have been together for 7 years. We stepped into kink maybe 2 years ago. We both came into the community together. He was interested in being a dominant, which led to caregiver daddy, and I, a submissive baby girl brat. My partner initially struggled with how to feel comfortable dominating me when historically in our relationship, I've always been the leader. I introduced kink and what it was and set the schedule for scenes and educational classes and munches. So when us, did the episode on assertive submissives, I was like, that's me. Fast forward to the last year and lifed. We've had talks and he's communicated to me that dominant doesn't actually resonate with him. He prefers to only top me. All right, no biggie. I've also continued most of my submissive tasks since then. Here's my question. There's currently been this ongoing battle with myself internally from the beginning. When it came time to submit, sometimes I felt this internal pull where half of me wanted to fall to my knees with no questions asked. The other half was fighting me the entire way down to my knees. Since we've essentially ended our DS dynamic, I've been questioning my identity. Am I really submissive? This was my first and only DS dynamic. Kayla puts it, I put it, the best. It's in theory, we would be non-monogamous and I could outsource a dynamic. However, I want to serve only him. I understand I cannot force him to be something he doesn't want to be. I'd never do that, but I feel really lost.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a lot. And I know this is, you conveyed this fairly calm and level-headed, but my first thought is I am so sorry to go from having a DS dynamic where you were the submissive to a dominant to basically not having that, even though they're still your top. That's not easy necessarily. So my first response is actually to ask back, have you dealt with your feelings on that change in the dynamic?
Because there's that's like a grieving process. Yeah.
It also could be that it's time to rethink what all of this looks like and means for both of you. How does your partner define what it means to be your top? Because tops can do what looks like dominance from the outside. It's just it's the actions can be the same, but the way people feel about them might be different.
Right.
So can your partner top you in ways that you need? Sort of it means something in one way to you, and it means something different to them, but it's a thing they're willing to do for you. Is that an option? Now, that is not what you asked about. You asked about how you're feeling, but you clearly listened and watched all that good stuff, so you know I had thoughts. But let's get into that push and pull. Half of you wants to submit, fall to your knees, and the other half is fighting it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that is, I mean, I can only speak from some of what I've seen, but I think that's a little bit more common than you think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's not just you having that, so it does happen.
My first thought was, because you say submissive baby girl brat, that kind of makes sense to me. The submissive side of you is like, yes, here, take the control, take the lead. I'll do what you say. Not everybody brats the same way or for the same reasons, but one reason to brat is sometimes that you want the person to take control. And so I would be curious, the question I would put back to you is, can you think through what those feelings, and would somebody taking the control have made that moment easier for you? I do think that many of us have fairly, I don't want to say stereotypical. I think, as you move through power exchange and kink, different things mean different things,
Right.
Over time, you get more nuanced to your definitions and your own identity. You are submissive baby girl brat. I totally get it. Submissive baby girl masochist. That's me. So you're already aware that there are layers here, but I wonder if you've got it in your head that submission is only falling to your knees and doing whatever somebody says. And those moments when you don't want to do that because that's not within your internal definition of submission, then you've decided that can't be submission. Some people submit when they're made to submit. Not, you know, their logical mind is like, oh, I know this is my choice and it's about consent, blah, blah, blah. But in the moment, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing this unless you make me, unless you show that you're strong enough, you're powerful enough, you've got enough control, whatever it is. And the reasons can be different for everybody. But that's the thing I would put back on you and say, hey, look at this. Is it that what you might have actually wanted in those moments is for the control to be yanked from you consensually, especially since you talk about how, you know, there was the confusion about could you even submit at all because you've, you know, always been the leader even through your kink journey, right? I like to say and tell myself, and helps with my mindset, that what looks like leading is me taking care of and serving sometimes. And I say that more for my own internal thought process and my own feelings, because if JB gave me an inch, I'll take a mile, and I'll try to control everything. And I will push through the way I think things should be.
And then I got to pull on the reins.
Right. And maybe in your case, that's not how your partner responds to that. Maybe, you know, so you, in your mind, both of you are thinking you're leading. Would it help you at all to think about what you do as serving the relationship, serving your partner? You know, maybe it's a mindset shift. I really would go back to the things that you're saying that you really crave and need, and that you are not necessarily going to be able to get from your partner because they're not your dominant, they're your top. I really wonder if it is possible for you to do the activities together, assuming they're willing, like if they're activities they're willing to do, but let each of you have your own individual meaning for it. Right. I also think there's the fallacy that Dom sub, you have to be on the same wavelength, and, you know, it has to mean the exact same thing to each partner. It doesn't. It doesn't. It has to be mutually pleasurable, mutually consented to, maybe mutually beneficial, but not necessarily. I do things as a service sub for JB that if he didn't want me to do them, I'd never do them. So I'm not walking around going, oh, I feel so submissive because I had to do this task. I'm like, this is a point of connection in my power exchange with my partner, and he asked me to do it, and I'm willing. Tops can have that same kind of mindset as long as the activities are things that they're willing to consent to. So can you get some of your needs fulfilled, but not use the language of power exchange so much? You know what it means to you. Maybe your partner is doing those things, topping you because he knows it'll make you happy. He knows it'll provide something you need. And you don't worry so much about the semantics of, is that something a dominant does versus that's something a top does? Including, and the reason I say all that is, if you need control taken from you, and, you know, through your brattiness or whatever, in order to submit and kneel and whatever, and that's something your partner's willing to provide, even if they're coming at it with top energy. I get where people come from of, oh, I want I want a person who does that thing to me to feel it in the way I feel it. I mean, yeah, I think most of us want that, but you don't necessarily need it if you're getting the interaction that feels right to you. If you're getting what you need and they're willing to provide it for you, you know, screw the terminology that gets used. And from the sometimes I want to kneel and serve and do only for my partner, and sometimes I don't, lean into that sometimes I don't, and try and figure out why. Is it because you want it taken from you? You want the control, you want the person in charge to go, no, I'm going to make you, again, consensually. If it's not that,
I mean, it could be a thing, and I know some people have a problem with this, is, you know, going into a scene, you can't turn that part of yourself off. Okay? It's, especially if you're someone who's used to being in control. Right. Okay? It can be difficult sometimes to let that go. So that could be another possibility. Now, I know with this one right here, there's certain things I can do that will, like, automatically bring you into your submissive space.
Yeah, my brain shuts off.
Yeah.
And again, a top can do that for you if they're willing, and it might mean one thing to you and mean something different to them, and really that is allowed to be okay. I'm not saying you will automatically think it's okay. It might not feel okay, and if it doesn't, I go back to the first question: have you grieved the loss of what you had versus what you have now? You are being very supportive, and I commend you for that. And I think that's how you keep the relationship of the two of you long term. You kind of go where the other one needs to go. But on your own, have you dealt with how you feel about this change?
Yeah.
Because those feelings, if they are not neutral, I would not say positive, if they're not at least neutral, that's can easily mess with your head and how you view yourself and your own submission, because it's entirely possible that what your brain is focusing on right now is what you don't have and what you can't do and what you used to have that you don't. And to get centered on your own identity, I think especially in a situation like this where there is an existing relationship that's shifted, you've got to figure out who you are and where you stand within the relationship as it is right now. And if you have told yourself that there are some things you just can't have because that was dom sub and it air quote can't be done as top sub or top bottom, that's a shift you might need to make. And it might, if it's even possible, if that's where you're able to go, that could take a while, because your memory is going to have the emotional attachments to these activities that you did as dom sub, that now you're maybe doing the same thing but they mean something different as top bottom. But that's also a conversation for your partner. What are they willing to do that they used to do without the attachment of, oh, this means I'm a dominant, when that's not who they vibe with. But there are also plenty of people who don't like the language of power exchange but still do the thing of power exchange too. True. And it can be difficult to separate those two things. If your partner came into dom sub thinking this is what dominance do and this is what kink is and this is what power exchange is, it can be difficult to extract, hey, I can do those things without the same meaning. And if they're willing to do those same things, then maybe you can get your needs met. It just, you each are viewing it through a different lens.
Yeah.
But yeah, my first thought in sometimes I want to kneel and just submit and give up, and others I don't. I only come to that conclusion because you call you're like, I'm a brat. Is it your brat side speaking?
Yeah.
It could be. Might not be. It might not be. It might be your own internal feelings about the change in your relationship. It might be your own internal definition of what you think it means to submit. Sometimes I submit with great joy and relief and oh, thank God I don't have to think a thought. And sometimes I am actively telling myself, in any other world I would never do this. But this is what my partner wants. And that is a type of submission that has nothing to do with just, falling to my knees and worshiping. It is, I'm doing the activity that makes my partner happy, because making my partner happy makes me happy. And then I feel submissive because I'm doing a thing I would not do without him telling me to do it. Right? Like, so maybe there might be some shift in your own definition of what it means to be submissive too. It's a complicated one. I personally would want to just make sure you are dealing with how you're really feeling and you're not just pushing it aside, because you're trying to be a supportive partner as well. I think you have to find the balance between, yes, supporting their choices and respecting, their needs and what they consent to, but also how you feel. Right.
Because feelings like that, if they're left undealt with, very easily build to resentment at some point.
And also, though, and you're already doing it clearly because you've changed terms that you're using, and I'm sure you're changing your activities. You get to define your relationship, your kink relationship, top, bottom, dom, sub, doesn't matter, in whatever way suits you both. So it doesn't have to look like anything you've ever seen before. It doesn't have to sound like anything anybody's ever talked about. It just has to work for both of y'all, regardless of what the stereotypes, cliches, best practices, examples, fuck all that, okay? As long as you're communicating and you got consent and everybody's willing to do the things they're doing, The rest doesn't matter. So if the language of dominance doesn't work for your partner, but the activities without some of the emotions added to do, can you still have what you need by just shifting what power exchange means to y'all, to fit y'all? Because that's all that really matters. Yeah. So that's a complicated one because there's so many feelings and so many ways, different ways people see who they are, who their partner is, how you see each other together. We don't know it all. We are not the end all be all. So if you have thoughts, especially if you've gone through something like this yourself, feel free to share your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoy this, we love a thumbs up. If you like it enough to want to come back for more, please consider subscribing.
And go ahead and ring that notification bell to get updates and new content.
Just do what Daddy says. And if you really like what we do, want to help us keep doing it, and get access to stuff you can't get anywhere else, join us on Patreon. Join by February 15th, and you're part of our membership drive, and you get extra stuff. Link below to learn more.
Who doesn't like swag?
Swag, especially when it's exclusive. Some of it's exclusive, can't get anywhere else. We'll never get anywhere else. Bye.
Bye.